Before dawn on August 13, 1961, the Soviet Union, led by Nikita Khrushchev, built a wall separating East Berlin and West Berlin. The wall was built because of the political fight going on between the Soviet Union and the U.S. The wall was made so people in East Berlin stay in East Berlin. Everyone in Germany had the right to life, but over 191 people were killed in trying to escape. East German residents had been promised the right to life and freedom by the Soviet Union. As they tried to escape, the right to life and freedom were denied. The Soviet Union had the responsibility to make sure no one left or escaped East Berlin without permission. Everyone who controlled West Berlin, the U.S., Great Britain, and France, had the responsibility to make sure everyone who was living in Berlin had rights. The immediate impact was people having freedom in what they do and the end of the Cold War. The long-term impact is many people not being treated right based on what side they were on before, and that many more problems arose for the Soviet Union. In 1961, the Berlin Wall went up. In the middle of the Cold War, the Soviet Union decided to completely block off West Berlin from East Berlin. The Cold War was right after World War II. Berlin, the capital of Germany, and Germany got split up into two different parts. East Germany and East Berlin was controlled by Nikita Khrushchev, and West Germany and West Berlin was controlled by France, the U.S., and Great Britain. When the wall was put up, no one besides the East German guards knew about the plan. Before the concrete version of the wall was up, there was just barbed wire. Plus, people were still able to travel between sides. Over 3,000 people escaped through trains, buses, cars, etc. before they had concrete walls. When the concrete wall was up, many people still tried to escape, resulting in 191 deaths. About 100 of those deaths were due to guards shooting them. Over time, more than 100,000 people tried to escape. 5,000 people were able to escape without guards noticing. Around 70,000 to 80,000 people were put in jail or prison for trying to escape. The time that the Berlin Wall was up, the Soviet Union had two different leaders, Nikita Khrushchev and Mikhail Gorbachev. Khrushchev led the Soviet Union when they first built the wall. Gorbachev led the Soviet Union to the downfall and the fall of the Berlin Wall. Freedom and safety. They are violated by border guards shooting people, the wall being up and watching people. According to the Imperial War Museum, the Berlin Wall was under the constant surveillance of armed East German border guards who were authorized to shoot anyone attempting to escape into West Berlin. The safety of the people living in East Berlin was pretty unsafe. Many people were either killed or detained almost every day. This leads to more people wanting to leave over the unsafetyness, but scared they might get detained or worse, shot. According to Docs Teach, under the watchful eye of the communist police, the right to freedom was denied for many people in East Berlin. Many people wanted to live a free life in West Berlin, but the wall stopped many people from enjoying that freedom. Having the police watch over you all day made making plans hard to leave or escape hard. According to the stifling Berliner Mauer, people who tried to flee through border fortifications were shot. The right to life was denied for many people in Berlin. Many people sought out the idea of freedom. People tried to have freedom, but border guards denied their right to life and tried to escape the conditions they were in. 191 people died from trying to escape. The Soviet Union had the responsibility to make sure that everyone had rights. They didn't take that responsibility and killed many people. The Soviet Union also had the responsibility to make sure that no one left Eastern Berlin without a reason. Everyone who controlled West Berlin had the responsibility to fight that everyone in Berlin, no matter what side they were on, had the same rights. According to Stifling Berliner Mauer, people had different reasons, political, economical, and personal, for wanting to leave. By August 1961, the GDR had lost a sixth of its population, at least 4 million people. The Soviet Union had the responsibility to make sure no one left Eastern Berlin. They made sure if someone left that they could be put into prison or worse, be executed. Many people would try to leave for many different reasons, and based on the reason if you got caught trying to escape. According to the Berlin Fence political cartoon, we can see that they are showing the difference between border walls with the sign "Stay Out" and the Berlin Wall which says "Stay In." The Soviet Union had the responsibility to make sure that everyone had rights and stayed inside the border. The Soviet Union denied that responsibility to make sure that everyone had rights, and that resulted in many people being denied rights. According to JFK Library, there are many people in the world who really don't understand, or they say they don't. What is the great issue between the free world and the communist world? Let them come to Berlin. There are some who say that communism is a way of the future. Let them come to Berlin. And here are some who say Europe is elsewhere. We can work with communists. West Berlin had the responsibility to make sure everyone had rights. Everyone who controlled West Berlin fought to make East Berlin free, and everyone had the same rights. In the days and months following the Berlin Wall, Eastern residents were allowed to have the rights normal citizens had. And the Berlin Wall coming down was the marking of the Cold War ending. According to Office of the Historian, people celebrating the fall of the Berlin Wall. 13 months later, on December 25, 1991, Gorbachev resigned and the Union of the Soviet Socialist Republics dissolved. The Berlin Wall had an impact on the end of the Cold War. Once the wall fell, which was a big symbol of the Cold War, everything started to fall apart for the Soviet Union. They had the leader resign, and the USSR dissolved. This connects to the economic side of the impact because the fall of the Berlin Wall resulted in two economic states falling, making one of the strongest forces fall when the Berlin Wall fell. According to History.com, the Berlin Wall stood until November 9, 1989, when the head of the East German Communist Party announced that citizens of the GDR would cross the border whenever they pleased. That night, a static crowd swarmed the wall. This piece of evidence shows that everyone was happy and excited to have the wall come down. East Berlin residents were excited to have the rights to move, talk, speak, and have freedom. This relates to the social aspect of the immediate project because that announcement of the Eastern Berlin residents were allowed to move freely happened on air in front of many people being there and watching on television. This also affects the economic side of things because the same person that announced Eastern Berlin residents to travel free was the person who ended the Cold War. As the time passes, the impact of the Berlin Wall left many people unable to get a job or work anywhere. Also, many conflicts started over the wall coming down and people gaining freedom. Another impact was also Germany was back to being a whole country and not two separate areas. According to Office of the Historian, by October 1990, Germany was reunified. This left a lasting impact because Germany had been split for many years. Many years later, Germany is still one country and hasn't been controlled by two different countries or leaders since Gorbachev stepped down. According to Norwich University, citizens in Eastern European countries such as Czechoslovakia, Bulgaria, and Romania staged protests against their pro-Soviet governments, hastening the collapse of the communist reigns across the former Soviet bloc. Once the Berlin Wall fell, it caused many problems for the Soviet Union. Many other places they controlled wanted to take back their freedom as countries and not be controlled by the Soviet Union. Because of the Berlin Wall, the Soviet lost 9 out of the 15 countries that they controlled. According to Guardian, in 1994, only 18% of East German employees still worked at the same place they had in 1991. This is a lasting impact on people because only some can get their jobs back and make enough money to get the same place to stay. This also caused some complications with how many people could get a job once the Berlin Wall even fell, if they were working with a very well-respected company before. Over 2 million people weren't able to get a job after the wall fell because of what side they were on when the wall was up. The impact of the Berlin Wall is that many people lived on the eastern side and that many conflicts started over the wall. Years after the wall fell, many job salaries were lower on the eastern side and the unemployment rate was higher on the eastern side than the western. How the Berlin Wall connects to 2025 is through the U.S.-Mexico border. Many people say that the Berlin Wall is getting a second life as the U.S.-Mexico border wall and border security is up. The Berlin Wall caused many problems with rights and responsibilities. The Soviet Union had the responsibility that every resident had rights, which they broke, and that no one left without permission or a reason. Eastern Berlin residents had the right to life and freedom, which not everyone is able to have. The people that controlled West Berlin had the responsibility to fight and speak out to make sure that everyone had fair rights. If the Berlin Wall never happened, the Cold War could have lasted longer. The fight between the U.S. and the Soviet Union would have escalated, causing more wars across the whole world, including different allies turning on other countries that they had been allied with. Many people wouldn't have died trying to escape, and people would have been allowed to travel to each side freely. Many people are saying that the Berlin Wall is like the U.S.-Mexico Wall. The Berlin Wall was also so important because it was one of the most famous images of the Cold War. The Berlin Wall caused many lives to change from either getting split from family or having rights violated. Many people were killed from this event.